To be fair. YOLO Swaggins. Oh my god, I made Crawley gigantic. Let me put you in the corner where you're supposed to be. This is crazy talk. I don't know what the hell's happening. Oh god, why is it squishing you too? Oh no! You know, this is terrifying how large
I'm not supposed to be the emphasis of the entire show, man. That's you.
Well, usually when you just make it smaller, it doesn't make you squishy. And it's making you squishy. And that's making me sad. Good morning / afternoon / things. Crawley came in with literally 8 seconds before I went live, so I was not prepared. It was just supposed to be me, the fireplace, and everyone. But now I have bonus people. And though he looks bizarrely weird for some reason, I don't really know how to fix that right now because reasons. Let's see. You know what? You're just gonna look weird, and we're just gonna deal with that.
That's fine. I'm used to looking weird.
Accept that and move on with life because we were just chatting today. We were answering questions about anything and everything. Exactly. Catch him. Solid start. Yeah, just I wanted to go over some stuff. Anything put in the Discord, anything people want to chat about. I mean, the original idea and FUGW was the data slate had come out. We'd have a couple days to really soak it in, and then we would talk about, you know, what's happening with armies. So I will be doing that. Hopefully it comes out on Tuesday, and then Rice and I will be sitting here trying to give a first take, and then we will give a polished version of that about a week later. So that is the schedule of things. And then Monday, tomorrow, we will make wild guesses about what we think is actually going to be in the data slate, and then we will see if we're even remotely right. So that's what we're doing. Oh, I got the Georgia Peach in here. What's going on, Bobby? I do love distorted Crawley. By the way, I have no idea why that's not auto sizing, because usually you just grab it and it just makes it sized right. I love the fact that you are literally a funhouse mayor right now, and I love everything about it.
I'm just that cool, man.
I like it. So we got stuff to chat about, though. It's pretty random today because I just wanted it to be, like I said, I just wanted it to be stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And literally talk about anything we want to talk about. So let me grab some of the stuff and or things. There's so many channels. There's so many channels.
Too many channels. Who manages that thing anyway, putting that many channels, man?
Obviously, it's not me. I mean,
we need an adult. Anybody know any adults?
Good morning, KR. In your made-up time zone. He's Mountain. That's not a real thing.
Is Mountain Time actually a thing? Who agreed to this?
It is not. I accept no time zones except Eastern Standard Time. Period. So, I am going to start with some stuff that was up there. I love it, Creepy Crawley. I do like it, by the way, because I fixed you just enough where it looks like maybe something's wrong with your screen. You're like, is that correct? So
you're trying to highlight my old age.
Mr. Scott Catch coming to the $5 super chat. With limited data but some pretty great performances, how do you think Krons should be addressed in the slate, if at all? I've got strong feelings about this because I don't think, and people can throw tomatoes at me all you want on this, because I don't think that Krons should be touched really at all, because we have literally shit for data. We have one big tournament to go off of, a couple smatterings of other things, but I think they already did the Immortals where you couldn't drop the million mortals on people, and I think that you have to let the meta adapt a little bit with an army that doesn't have obvious OP things. You know what I mean? When we had things like towering and devastating wounds and stuff like that, yes, I understand that completely. 100, right away we have to do something about it. But with Necrons and most armies, to be honest with you, let the meta adjust to them. Let people figure out what the secret sauce is to trying to beat that army. And a lot of times the meta just adjusts. To be honest with you, it happened with Grey Knights, and then Grey Knights got double nerfed. So Grey Knights were dominating. I mean, what is this, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I don't know. Time's meaningless to me. I'm old. But Grey Knights came out like wildfire, and then everyone kind of adapted to that army, and then it just went back to a regular win percentage, and then they got their nerfs, after the meta had already adapted to them. And I think that that's going to happen with Krons. Now, that's just my prediction, but I just hate when we have a super fast reaction to an army and then just smash it. You know what I mean?
Well, and the weird part is, too, Matt Laura is a fantastic guy, and he's a good player. But so many of the games that you watch of him playing, his opponents didn't understand what his army did, right? And in the circumstance in the last game, right, that's already a bad mission for Eldar, because Eldar just likes to have two that are close together.
The thing is Fulcher made a couple mistakes on that, because that's what happens when you play 10 games of 40k, you know what I mean, in a row.
Right.
I think that actually he had a good matchup into that. Basically,
if he remembers the 3-inch.
No, but if he just slams 3, we were talking about before, and if you just slam 3 Night Spinners on your home objective, push those Wraithguard onto, because they were playing Vital Ground, there was only 4 objectives, 2 in the middle. I go, and you just push your Wraithguard onto one of the objectives, and just take the rest of your army and just harass the second one. I go, you kind of just score points, and they have a real hard time taking care of the Wraithguard. Just ignore everything else and box out. You know what I mean? Score points.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about before, too, is if you look at Folger's wave deployment, he doesn't have a deployment strategy that he's going on, right? He's doing a reactionary deployment every time.
No.
And so he didn't have any strategy for screening out
you do 3 Night Spinners.
Yeah, right, but that's what I'm saying. You could even get away with 2 if you wanted to have, because he had the one down in that nice little nook down there for being able to pressure the bottom and be able to leverage it. But the issue that we ran into there, right, is that he did not think about, hey, I'm just going to screen out the entire backfield from 3-inch period and not let people mess with my home objective using the models that have to sit back here anyway, right?
You just jam the thing in. You make sure that they can't get on the objective, and then you push one objective. People think too much of, how am I killing everything in the opponent's army? I don't have to do any of that shit. I just need to score more points than my opponent does. Yep. And you have to figure out your plan before the game starts, before you put any models on the board. And in a player place terrain, before you place any terrain on the board. You have to figure out what exactly you're doing. Right, you know what? I can't talk like this without a Diet Dr. Pepper in my hand. How am I not sponsored? But it's one of those things where he looks, and the thing is everybody fucks up. I'm sorry, but especially at the end. The funniest thing, we always laugh about it, because the people that are fucking dying, like myself, I always laugh about the fact that I have to play my best 40k when I'm at my worst. You know what I mean? At the end of a weekend. Maybe you stayed up too late. Maybe you've had several of the alcoholic beverages. You don't know. So no one can talk shit about something that happened. You're like, hey man, how about you don't sleep for a couple days and fucking play nonstop 40k? You will goof. So,
but that's why we talk about, when you're doing your practice games, you do fundamental things that you're going to do every single game, right? So if you know you're playing against armies currently that exist that can come down and then walk onto your objective, it's almost like I have these 2 models that are pretty large tanks that I can put side by side, and you can't walk onto my objective.
That's the biggest thing is that I say that all the time, and like, hey, how do you play when you're tired, drinking, whatever kind of thing? Because I do the same shit all the time in practice. You know what I mean? Like, it's muscle memory. You play like you practice. You know what I mean? And if you keep doing the same shit, that's why you always have to ask the same questions. That's why I always go, I will say it ad nauseum. How am I scoring? How am I denying? How am I setting up for the next turn? And then I just don't move shit. I say that when I'm blackout. You know what I mean? It's just what I've been doing for so long. And it just helps to get into the groove of doing that. That's why one of the most important things you can do, especially if you don't have a lot of time, you know what I mean? Job, life, kids, family, everything. Just deploy your army. Deploy your army, throw up TTS, put it in the basement, wherever you play, and just throw your army on the board. It's a huge deal. Oh, catch me, yeah. First time I had to play 4 rounds. Dude, the Shadow run is a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. And sadly, I didn't play it this year. I was like, I didn't get to be in my own nightmare. But I'm usually in that, so. Oh.
But no, Hypercrypt should not be nerfed. I don't think Crons need to be nerfed. I think they already nerfed them probably to a degree higher than they probably needed to be already.
I think that's
but the
fine.
Immortal thing was bullshit.
I don't even care about that. Because, like as I said, in my Panoptic, I wasn't even taken in the first place. Yeah, I mean, Bryce and I have been arguing about that because he was like, "Oh, it's such a big deal," and I was like, "I just don't care."
It really is for the offensive output because the army, especially Canoptic, doesn't have good offensive options. So
I agree, but I didn't care about my offensive output really in that army. I wanted to grind.
Sure, but the problem is that out of every 10 games that you play, on average, one of those your dice are going to just screw you, and then you have no way to be able to outplay your way back out of it.
There's always a way.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Unless, of course, you don't deploy something on the board that you should have, and/or guys go through things.
I recommend against that course.
I'm going to the wall again. Probably just coming back to play 40K after taking a few months off. Any advice or direction to take a Tau list at the moment? Obviously, data slate and coming codex should change it shortly. One of the biggest things in Tau I see is people. I'll tell you things not to do more than to do, because there's plenty of ways to play Tau. You can play literally breacher type rush, tons of vehicles. Well, there's going to be tons of vehicles no matter what, because all the suits are vehicles now. But one of the biggest things is make sure that you have enough trash to play the game. So many Tau armies only have boom boom, and then people just outpoint you. I mean, you kill the shit out of their army, and then you just don't score enough points because you don't have enough things to play the game. Carly and I have talked about this multiple times. A lot of armies, like you have to look at your army, and yes, you have to have enough damage. So there's a couple things you always have to check off. You go, how much damage do I have enough damage? If Carly right now just goes, "Yo, I'm putting my army in the middle of the board. Figure it out. Do I have enough damage?" And it doesn't have to be kill the army in one turn either. So do I have enough damage to start meticulously picking that army out? Yes, no. Do I have enough things that can help with that, which is move block? Do I have enough move blocks? Because you don't have to take on the whole board. You need to take on part of the board. But to take on part of the board, you got to move blocks. So you have to have units to do that. And the third key component is, do I have enough scoring? How am I scoring points right now? Am I doing fixed? Am I doing tactical? Well, if I'm doing either one of those, who's doing those things? You have to put those things in your army. And the thing I see a lot of times with Tau is they don't have those elements. They have all of the killing in the universe. They have a couple things that move block, and then they stand there and go, "Oh, I murdered your army, and I haven't scored a secondary since turn 2." You know what I mean? So you have to put those things in your build. Again, deploy your army by yourself and literally run the first 2 turns and just go, hey, run tactical and go, hey, what would I score? And then look at your army and go, how would I do this? And the thing is a lot of times you'll be adjusting your army, because I guarantee you a lot of first goes in everybody. I do this myself. You'll make an army, you think it looks awesome, and you find out it's either parking lotted, I can't score, who's going out there. We've done that multiple times where you just go immediately back. How many times, Carly, have you gone back to the drawing board because you put the army on the board and just went, all right, cool, I have area denial in this, and then you look at your army and go, fuck, I don't have anybody that's going to do that.
Literally innumerable times. I have a checklist for every list that I make that has, do I have something that scouts or can get onto an objective on turn 1 for an action? Do I have the ability to deal with a race block? Do I have the ability to deal with Iron Storm Marines, right? All of these checks go into every single list that I make so that I'm making sure. And then I have, like, when I have to explain to Brad why my bad list makes sense to me, do I have a good enough reason that justifies my existence, right? Because me and Brad have such different play styles. I always think about what he would consider in those lists, right? And then if I can make a good case to the point where he's like, oh, I wouldn't play it myself, but that makes sense, I know I've hit a good list.
Yeah. And that's another thing, though. I do want to throw that out there. there's nothing wrong with grabbing someone's list idea or whatever, but make it your own. Man, I cannot stress this enough. I see people grabbing net lists all the time and just slamming them on the table and not understanding why there's certain shit in the army. Just make it your own. You know what I mean? Also, if somebody tells you that you can't use a certain unit combo, whatever, punch them in the throat. Just use your stuff. Figure it out. Experimenting is the only way you're going to get better, and your list is going to get better, is trying to figure out stuff. And your list should be constantly changing. You know what? I'm backing this one up, Crowley. Your list should be constantly changing, but you have to know what the core identity of your list is. You can't be changing 1,000 points all the time. You need to be changing less than 500 points, but a few hundred points should be changing all the time. We're getting, depending on obviously the tournament you go to, the missions, the terrain, but also we're getting a new codex, and we're going to get probably 2 new codexes every single month. So you have to be aware that these exist. Don't chase the meta, but be aware of the meta. See?
I have a really good story for this, actually. So we were talking, right? We were talking with Kyle Treya, who's a really good player. And he showed me his Death Guard list. And I saw his Death Guard list. We were talking about it. And I was like, okay. So I've asked Kyle quite a few questions about how it works because I got super excited about it, right? I made my list. And I took some elements of his, but I didn't like some elements of his, and mine's completely different. But I understood I made sure I understood why he's putting all the pieces in there and stuff, right? We have very vehemently disagreements about certain aspects, like he wants to have fights first on everything. And I'm like, I don't really care about that as much. But it comes to the conclusion of, hey, I understand why the list that I'm playing is working that way, and then I'm creating my own conclusion for it.
Look at you. That was wise. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm going to end now. I feel like you crushed me on this one. You know, I'm going to the wall now. I'm running away from that. That was too much. That was deep thinking. Do I have a fucking...
Wait, Kyle's not here, right? I don't want to actually inflate his ego.
Boom. Blew my mind. But let's go to the wall a little bit. I don't want to get into that with intent, but do you think GW demonstrate they can balance the game with a scalpel instead of an axe? We know Eldari needs to come down a notch, Drakari needs to come up a notch, but can they bring Black Templars back into the Goldilocks zone by pushing Iron Fireless down while not killing out Righteous Seal? My biggest fear is commingled tournament. I hate that, by the way. They do a very bad job of not just taking broad data when one detachment is significantly winning better than another, and also what the synergies are. They do look very much on plus or minus, as opposed to the fact that a lot of things are multiplicative, and they do a very bad job of that, and they've shown that time and time again. Now, they have done a good job in the last couple slates of massaging the meta as opposed to destroying the meta, and I have to give them props on that. We trash them all the time about certain things, but they did a great job. They did a great job with Death Guard. They did a good job with Votan, and they just kind of messed with stuff. Now, if they would just be a little more bold on changing mechanics instead of points, I think we would have a better changes in the meta, because a lot of things can't be solved with points. Yinkarn's rules, like, we'll just go Yinkarn and Night Spinner. I know we've talked about it ad nauseum, but like it just is a thing on that, is you're never going to change that shit with points. Those things have gone up, what, 100 and something points between the two of them, and everybody just goes, yeah, cool, I'm still taking that shit because it's broken. The mechanic is broken.
The problem, and I get the axe versus scalpel argument, because I don't understand GW's balance process even in 10th. Because look at the Canoptic change, right? The Canoptic change was a freaking sledgehammer. I know it doesn't affect the way that you play it, but comparatively the way that the rest of the people are playing it, and yet for some reason the Night Spinner and the Incarn have made it through freaking 4 changes, 5 changes.
The thing is, I actually think that Eldar would be fine if they would just change a couple of these mechanics. You know what I mean? It would be, the other index is super deep, and the problem is that no one's taking any of that stuff because Spinners and Incarn are just wildly better than the other things because of the mechanic. Change the mechanic. It's also unfun. You're like, hey man, I took 3 Night Spinners and I put 3 units of your army on lockdown. You know what I mean? It just feels like shit. So, and going back to the Black Templar thing, I think that the Black Templar. See you later, sweetheart. Everybody say goodbye to my wife. But with the Black Templars, I actually think the Black Templars are kind of fine. I would rather have something hovering around the sweet spot than to fuck with it and have it smash. Like the army that I'm most worried about, two armies that I'm most worried about. I'd be worried about orcs, but they're getting a codex, so I don't care. It'll all work out in the codex. Sisters and Votan are the two armies that I'm super worried about in the Black Templar in the data slate, because of the fact that they're both operating at a very sweet spot and any changes could completely smash them. Sisters, because of the fact that it takes a lot of skill. Screw you, Ketchum. I'll give you props. Takes a lot of skill to work that army. You know what I mean? It's not a data slate army where you go, my stuff's better than your stuff, and you just line up and smash.
Here's the thing, though. I think that the reason that we see the issues that we do, and I know we've disagreed on this before, is the toughness changes, right? There are so many armies that are actually would be in such a better spot if we were still using 9th edition toughness ranges. But, like, for instance, if you play against Scott's army, and you know his only way to efficiently crack armor in that list is to just destroy that Sisters unit or the Dialogus, right? That creates this really interesting circumstance of, if I know that I can scalpel that out, then he's not going to be able to do a significant amount of damage to my armor, and then I can crush it. A lot of the armies like Black Templar and stuff like that wish that they could use the Gladius rules, but then they lose access to, like, the, for instance, Crit 5s for precision and stuff like that, and they're all just like 1 or 2 ticks away. And I do think that one of the biggest structural problems with 10th edition is that toughness expansion, but not having the weapon types to be able to deal with that on general lists. So the armies that can, like Eldar and like Necrons before and stuff like that, were deemed to be overpowered because they have the tools to do it when other armies don't.
Yes, I'll give you that, but the thing is that if an army is sitting at a sweet spot, how about just don't fuck with something? If it's really sorry,
you are completely correct, but do you think that's what's going to happen? Because right now they're not buffing and adjusting things or nerfing things based upon popularity rather than understanding why it's effective in the list.
Correct. That's why I think that, like, things like Arcoflagellants are going to get hit and shit like that. You know what I mean? Because GW, this is why we both think this. GW has said publicly, and they've done it time and time again, if something shows up in all the lists, they feel they have to nerf it a little bit. And sometimes that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Especially, yeah, exactly. Especially if something is like a core piece of the army and why it's operating on. But, like, there's those middle grade armies that I think are the most fun type armies. You know what I mean? Where you really have to figure out how you're going to win with that army, but they give you a toolbox. It's one of the reasons I love Orcs so much, because it just gives me tools to figure out how the hell I'm going to win the game. And I love that. And I don't want those armies to be super buffed or super nerfed. You know what I mean? Because it takes away that. And I am worried about that. And the Votan thing I'm worried about is just because they have so few data sheets. You know what I mean? So, like, if you nerf something, it just has a huge effect, because you can't just pivot into something else because they have shit for data sheets. You're like, hey, man, if you nerf one of my data sheets, that means that I lose, what, 16% of my army. Yeah. 6 sheets. Yeah. So it's a big deal on that. Go ahead. What is your take on the Templars, by the way? Because I actually think the Templars are semi-fine, and it's going to be hard not to just punt Zeal into the sun if they fuck with the Ironstorm versions of it.
I think Black Templar are in a really good spot. I was actually looking at playing them for a bit. I just think that right now the only problem with trying to run them efficiently is you really need to run them in Gladius, in my opinion, to get the most out of them, because you want the advance and charge, you want the fallback, you want to be able to do the things. It gives you the option of taking a really good aggressor squad for being able to handle some specific problems. The issue with that is that it feels like almost all of the good Black Templar sheets are designed about playing in the Templar detachment. So it's like this suffering of like half one or needing more of the other. Um, yeah, like I especially wish that there was access to be able to get reliable lethal hits in a Primaris Crusader squad, so that you could attach Hellbrick in Gladius and still get your lethals or your explosions. But
Yeah, and lethal hits is such a big deal, man. I think that lethal
yeah,
hits, everybody likes explosions, and obviously they're awesome, and dev and whatnot. But like, I really feel that lethal, out of the keywords that came out, you know what I mean,
hmm
that we use right now, I think the lethal hits is undervalued.
yep,
Just making people take saves is friggin' huge, man.
yep, and especially with the way that the current roles are for AP, and AP being lower and cover being as prevalent as it is, when you can get into things that are like 1 damage AP2, AP3 on a massive scale, I think that you're in the right spot there.
I'm going to agree with David on this. He goes, just basically don't change something just because everybody's using it, because also it changes the most people using it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're basically pissing off a lot of people. And Hunter, you are right. Orc's tool is fist.
Right, but in orcs right now, because everybody and their friends is taking freaking Badruck, what happens if Badruck and Squig Source or Squig Riders took a 15% hit?
Oh, it would fuck the army up so bad.
Right, but the only reason people are taking them is because of how the meta is. Which is sad because GW has core product lines that they agree to for each entire army of things that people should be taking in lists, but then they're upset that people are taking certain things in every list. It doesn't math.
Yeah. I'm going to go to my money on this. Do you expect the meta to fundamentally change with the data slate? Like new factions on top, new ones on the bottom? Yes. To tell you the truth, yes and no. I expect the top to be pulled down, but if they massage it and don't destroy it, I think the CSM's still going to be like a top Necron. I think the people are still going to be there. I think that I'm hoping they do the same thing that they did the last time, which is they pull one or two from the bottom and make them legit, and then they basically massage the middle a little bit. So you're going to see a lot of change in who's at 52 53 and who's at 47 48. I think that will change more than anything, excuse me, than anything else.
I really, really do want to see, because I feel like if you knock Eldar and CSM down a peg right now, there are lots of armies in the middle that would be able to flourish, and we'd have a much more viable meta. Like Death Guard is something I've been tinkering with right now and having a crap ton
I think
of fun
that's an
with it.
underrated army, man.
It's super good.
And the thing is that I mean, shit. If they just change the goddamn Night Spinner mechanic, Dark Pack mechanic, you know what I mean? Like CSM has like a lot of things that you can tinker with. So like, Ben had it actually had a good statement on this, because I was like, because I'm almost always, I would rather you miss and not nerf enough as your miss than nerf too much, because making people not have fun with their particular faction sucks. It just does. But he was like, they're getting a book, and if they miss them, because you got to remember that the codices were made months and months and months ago, because they have to go to print and everything else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if like CSM gets very like barely dusted and then gets their book, they might actually be the first problem child of a codex.
You know what scares me, to be honest? We're in the same situation that we were in ninth, where outside of a couple of outliers, things felt like they were really balanced, and then Drakari came out.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it was White Scars into, I think White Scars were super good until Death Guard came out, and then Death Guard were good until, but the game was actually playable even when the Drakari medic was, and then the Eldar Tyrannid, holy smokes boys, time happened, the dark times.
He wants me to fix you. I don't know what's going on with this window. You know, I might make you giant again and try to fix it one more time.
Okay.
Nope. Is this one better? I feel this is so much better. It's totally not better. So much worse.
There's a good question for you. Ed asks, the biggest question is a Space Marine player, as a Space Marine player, is how bad Marines get hit if they nerf the shit out of Inceptors.
It's a huge hit. I mean, you got to figure, like, I'm taking 15 right now. in my list. Also, now it's really bothering me why I can't fix your size.
I'm not as distorted now.
I mean, I
Oh,
have.
there we go. Now we're back.
Now we're back. You know what? Screw it. We're going with this one.
No, I think Inceptors are a huge problem. The larger problem, again, of 10th is that there's not a lot of reach out and touch, and they screwed up melee so bad that it makes it really difficult. You got to stop tinkering with it, Brad.
Now
That it
I
makes it
wanted to mess with it again.
fair enough. It makes it very difficult to reach out and touch things, and for melee armies to effectively work out. So now we're coming into this weird ranged hybrid, and then the armies that can melee are just doing very well.
Well,
So
it's because what you want is armies that have hybrid abilities. I mean, think about every edition mostly. You had a couple specialized armies, Tau, World Leaders, things like that only really function in one way, but everybody else had a blend. You know what I mean? You had a little bit of melee, you had this. And because melee became so terrible for so many armies, we had very little of it.
right, but even right now, like what armies are successful? We have Eldar, which is predominantly range, but has a very strong melee toolkit on a specific model or two, right? And they have dice to modify. We have CSM, which, hey, shocker, when you can give full rerolls to hit and you can have exploding fives on lethal hits, solves a problem, right? And then outside of that, we don't have any consistent, or sorry, except for orcs, but orcs surprisingly have anti-armor on their most important things for being able to crush the crap out of vehicles, and a dude on a giant squigosaur that says F anything that I touch in melee, right?
Well, he does as long as you fail a couple saves.
Yeah,
And
that's true. That's an important part, failing the saves.
no, I'm going to go a couple of things on this. David, yes, thank you. Inceptors are a great example of what Brad said earlier. If you let people keep using something, the meta will shift to bring anti-deep strike tools like infiltrators. 100%. People will start boxing out differently. Hunter, yes, make melee great again. Sorry, make melee great again. Christian, is lethal 5+ too good? Seems like it almost invalidates the new toughness scale. Not really, because you have to limit where it comes from. Because you want tools in your army, and the best part about having a tool that does something is your opponent can then counterplay against that tool. So it becomes into this back and forth game of where is that thing that I need to kill or stay away from or play against. Also, I kind of like your new look. You're not blurb, but you're just tiny. I like this.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what separates out the super solid factions from the non-super solid factions, right? Who has the anti-tank to deal with anti-tank at range, and who has the ability to give their melee lethal hits or to get their melee into ranges where it deals with things. Like tough 9 and 10 and a tough 9 through 12 are a really interesting puzzle to solve, and some armies literally just can't do it right now, right? But there are some armies that just don't have guns that can get up into armor. Like, look at Death Guard. They have to go into knights to be able to pull in things that can deal with tough 11 and 12.
And I just think that let's say Trey and I have argued about this forever on this, and I just let him do whatever he wanted to.
Yeah.
Just go lethal hits.
You're not wrong, right? But then lethal hits on 6s are incredibly... Mr. I'm going to do nothing but spam every single thing with dev wounds. Hasn't been spamming everything with dev wounds. Maybe it's because he realizes that 6s are not a reliable way to win games.
It is with rerolls. Saw that in my Marine list. Just make it, what was in my Marine list? Only things with twin linked. If I can't reroll, you're dumb. You're not even in my army.
Yep. Fair enough.
True, KR does make a good point. He goes, not every army has a way to stop 3-inch deep strikes. All Imperium have access to a tool, but other factions don't. True story, but I do like to let the meta play itself out before we heavy hand shit. And that's really where I go on that. It's just one of those things where I hate that we hit stuff too fast, is I guess what I'm saying. We've done it a lot. You know what I mean? Where we just let the meta play out. Sometimes it does suck. You know what I mean? Like the beginning of the 10th was a tornado of dicks. I have to admit, I mean, that was just painfully awful. But when you're just talking about meta shit, like Sometimes you just got to let an army be a little too OP for about a month and then figure out what actually needs to be changed. What is OP about it? Besides everybody just being pissed on the internet, what can we change? You know what I mean? Instead of just randomly throwing point changes at something, let's talk about, is there a mechanic that we need to change? Is certain things being changed? How can we change the synergies on this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Morning Brad of the Big C, like it.
Or just there's this really crazy concept of being equally heavy-handed with everybody, and not like you gutted the shit out of Knights in less than a month. Good job, bravo Zulu. But like, why in the world CSM and Eldar have been a tear since the freaking index launches, and they're
Well,
not being touched?
also, when you change points for no reason and
Yeah.
then you change the mechanic, adjust the points back, man.
Yep.
Like Knights, for instance. Fuck, what was that all about? It's the same thing with Custodes, where Custodes they didn't get any one big nerf. They just got so many small nerfs. They're like, hey, man, none of these nerfs are individually a big deal. But how about if we give all of them to you? You're like, ow.
Like, I don't understand why Custodes got hit as hard as they did. Yes, the dude won Seattle, and there were a few Custodes players at Seattle. Nerf the freaking strat where they get to fight first if they're touching an objective, like they did with the battle tactic change, and suddenly we're in a better spot, and we can give it a little bit of wait and see, rather than we're gonna hit you with points, we're gonna hit this, we're gonna hit that, we're gonna hit that, and it's just like, oh, cool, well now they're dead. Good job.
I love it, KR. So if GW does heavy-handed people get mad. If they light touch, people get mad. My prediction is people get mad. That's my favorite meme. I put it up not long ago. 40K community only hates two things: what the current state and change.
Yep.
So,
I just want them to be consistent, KR. That's it. Just be consistent.
yeah, and I agree. Adam, the thing is that like when I'm playing orcs, I don't have any ability for special abilities for blocking out 3-inch strikes. You just block out what you can, and you utilize terrain and everything else, and just deal with it. To be honest with you, and I like that though. To be honest with you, it is a super unpopular opinion because I want things like Space Marine chapters to go back to not being able to have certain things. I like the uniqueness and creating really big strengths, but having with that comes an inherent weakness. I enjoy that. And I like building lists with restrictions, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I agree.
it just makes it more fun.
And David Anderson talks about specifically, they leaned into point changes, but the indexes were so deep that points didn't matter for Eldar and CSM. But I disagree with that because they structurally hit Custodes. They structurally hit Imperial Knights. They've structurally hit Necrons, right? So they're not consistent with what they're going to points out versus what they're going to structurally hit, right? And then poor Admech, oh my gosh, they were garbage before, and now they're garbage now. So what do we need to do to get them? I'm sorry, yes, there is a build that if you're willing to spend $1 billion...
I was about to say... I'm like,
I'm sorry, I don't want to spend $1 billion to get this one list that might function for a couple of months before something gets touched, or heaven forbid they nerf those units because they're too popularly played by the lowest win rate faction in the game.
Dude, I'm going to go and have it on this one real quick. It goes off a little bit, but I'm passionate about this. Any predicted changes to free strat, it kind of feels bad when your army doesn't have access to that, whether it's get the just spam. I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
I do. It's like certain armies have access to the VAC, either the assassin or the enhancement, stuff like that, and other ones don't. And nothing feels suckier than when, like, currently when you're playing like CSM and they have like triple chosen and they just like they're spending 4 free CP a turn kind of shit, and then you have no access to stop it or to get that yourself. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that, to be perfectly honest with you. I would rather have more CP regeneration tools than free CPs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And make them centered around characters and stuff like that. You know what I mean? The Wayleaper's a bad example because he's a lone op and stuff, but he is a good guy. Marnius Calgar, Azrael, anybody that gives you CP and or can give you a CP or reactive CP, the what's his face, the auto divinator enhancement for Necrons. Like
Dude, you just take a Roken, you get a free CP, and he's a badass.
yeah, I'm saying I like any of those guys though. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would rather have that than certain armies being able to shit out free CP. It just doesn't feel great for people because they can't do anything about it if you're a certain faction. So yes, I agree on that. I would rather just have it so that because you can also just target those guys. You know what I mean? Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm tired of you getting CP. I'm just gonna go back and beat the shit out of that guy. So
See, 1+ Saves talks about specifically, I wish you didn't get punished for discarding a tactical if you took a CP character. And I can't say I disagree because I think it's actually amazing to not have to discard one if my plan resolves around me having an additional CP the next turn. I get it. It gives me flexibility, right? That's why I bring an Ethereal in my list for Tau so that I can consistently have the CP generation without having to discard a secondary.
what do you think about the uncapped CP like we used to have?
I miss that. I don't like the version that we're currently in. I think it's better for the game because there was problems with people being like, "Ha, this is my go turn," and I dumped 6 CP in one turn.
Yeah, but
But
I mean, you do something different than that. But I do like to say if I'm playing tactical and I'm playing like Marnius Calgar, I'm playing an ethereal. Why can't I just get another CP? You know what I mean?
yeah.
I did two different things. Sorry, I'm still fucking not feeling.
So you mean like having you could have 2 or 3 forms of free CP in your turn in a turn,
and they'd be
across
different
your
because
list?
like instead of
Yeah.
just one blanket, you could have. You could put them in categories or whatever. You know what I mean? Just like we have the
Yeah.
strats now. Battle tactic, you can only get one. You can only ever get one for throwing away something. You know, but that's a separate thing. You know.
That would also fix the free CP strat problem that we were having before.
Well, it'd also help other people get more. You know what I mean? You would choose your character. You don't have free CP, but you have your character that gives you CP, and you have the ability to throw a card away for CP. You know what I mean? So you could try to catch up, I guess.
It also makes regens not garbage. Like if your opponent does a thing, then you get a CP if you roll a 4-up, because those currently just suck because it's like, oh, cool, I need to randomly hope that I get my CP back.
Yeah, and yeah, when guard had their CP battery, I don't want a CP battery. I just want to. I don't want to punish you for taking 2 ways to get a CP back. Maybe 2 CP is the new cap. To be honest with you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would feel better because I want people to be able to use their strats. The strats are cool. You know what I mean? But there is and always has been a pretty big goddamn difference between the haves and the have-nots. You know what I mean?
Well, in the current economy, I think it lends to your point. It becomes a situation where when you build a list, you have an expectation of your CP spend on a given turn. You're not using a lot of the depth of the toolkits because you don't have the CP generation to do it, right? Like sometimes you'll be able to deviate from your plan and do it, but most of the time, like if I'm playing Eldar, I know I'm going to be using 2 CP every turn for Fire and Fade and 1 CP for
Phantasm.
Phantasm, right? I don't get to use unless it's like a game-defining changing moment, I'm not going to use Fallback, Shoot, and Charge or
Yeah.
the other ones. I don't need to.
Yeah, because those are so ridiculous. Go to the wall real quick. Bobby, yeah, he was so much better than early ninth. Early ninth was jacked about a lot of things. I love Zoob's comment here. Replace free strats and all characters with a free secondary discard. Oof, that would be fucking great.
Give me a free secondary shuffle.
Yes, shuffle, not discard. Also, yeah, 1+Saves, all caps, because it is no turn 1 capture enemy outpost, maybe. You know, coupled with no having to keep bring it down when your opponent doesn't have a target in his army. That also seems pretty suspect. You're like, so you don't have a vehicle or a monster? I guess I'll just put this card right on my asshole and see how it feels.
Like who at GW was like, man, I don't think it's reasonable to expect people to take objectives in the middle on turn 1, but your opponent's objective, that's fair game.
Yeah.
Like all 4 armies that might have the capability of being able to do a capture.
You're like, it happened at LVO in the finals. Fuck you. That's never happening. It's just so ridiculous. Ah,
I can't imagine either of us being like, yeah, we're gonna let a monolith appear on our backfield on turn one.
we're
That's
not giving
happening.
him shit. I'm just saying that I'm not giving Folger any more shit. I'm giving shit for capture enemy outposts being bullshit on turn one.
That feels real bad though if you're the opponent and you're down 8 points on turn one because they pulled capture and were able to pull off an 8 point capture on turn one.
Just block your goddamn home objective off. Screw it.
I
Just shut
don't
up.
disagree. I'm just saying it would feel bad. If only you had a character that was lone op that you
God,
could stick in the back of your corner.
I love how
Sorry,
Evan comes
moving
back
on.
with Stu plays Eldar and he can do it. Yeah, because fuck the Incarn. I'm dropping lots of f bombs today. I don't care. It's Sunday. I'm doing everything. It the the Incarn's rules are stupid. They're just stupid. I didn't believe for the first weekend. Crawley, Brent, and myself went down to Salt City. Was that in Syracuse? I don't
Yes.
even know where we were. It was in New York
Literally
somewhere.
nobody else was running the end card with us. That was
Yeah,
hilarious.
and I'm like, oh, it's kind of a lot of points for what it does. And Brenton looks at me and just goes, "You don't know what it does, do you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's been blah blah blah." And he's like, "No, you're adding sentences. They took away the last two sentences that said you can't charge after you do it." And I'm like, "What? That can't be right, because that would be the dumbest mechanic I've ever heard of ever. I kill something, I can just go an inch away from you, then you can auto charge." And he goes, "Now you're getting it." I'm like,
Yeah.
"There's no way that's real." It
Who
was real.
made that decision? I just don't understand. Like the model itself, by the way, if you took away the first turn charge and just put it back to its original points,
It's awesome.
fantastic for the points. Just
Yes.
being able to deep strike or rapid that thing
Move
and then just
around.
be a
You have
tear.
tons of movement. It's super
Yeah,
cool. It also looks cool.
yeah.
And it would be super cool. Yeah. But there's, what do you do about it? You're like, yeah, I took 3 night spinners and I bombed you and killed something because I have rerollable dev wounds and your model died. Fuck, you can kill a tank with it.
Bro. Round like 8 of Nova, I kill the entire squad of Ariman's dudes, teleport her back there. She kills Ariman in shooting, and I'm like, hey, why not? Let's give Magnus a shot. And she kills Magnus in melee, and I'm like, I am so sorry, TJ. That was so not fair.
Yes, please, everyone, please remember to like and subscribe. Really helps the channel. It really helps the channel, by the way. We're starting to get put out there in places that it would be great. Yeah, there would have been more you card at Salt City, but I only had one to load out, unlike the 3 Wraith Knights I gave out. Oh, Jesus.
Oh man.
That was still, we were the, I love the Crawley and I game. Crawley beat me in about 11 seconds by going first on sweeping engagement. He was playing Knights, and then before any of the Night Nerfs. It was literally day one. And
Mm-hmm.
And the best is when you're like, well, let's roll it back real quick and see if you went first, because I think I had play. And then I'm like 2/3 of the turn through rolling. And you're like, yeah, no, this is dumb. Like,
Yeah.
either
You
player
would kill
going,
both of my big knights and like 3 of my small and like 3 activations.
yeah. You're like, yeah. And then you just went, okay, first turn, stupid. Okay. You want to go get some drinks? Yes, I would like to go get some drinks.
I'm still convinced that the GW people hacked the stream to knock that shit down so they didn't have to worry about it.
It is true. Oh man, the tabletop live guys, they like, as we literally rolled to see who goes first, and as you won the roll, the stream died.
Yep.
I haven't looked at the Adelaide Uprising results, but also the Aussies are very, very big on counter mentalists and playing against stuff. They do a great job at it too. They've got some really good players, but they're one of their jams in their meta is a lot of the top guys always try to really counter the meta. So you end up taking some of the usual suspects out because people are really teching super hard in certain ways.
Do you think that if we were to adjust CSM and Eldar down, that Black Templar is going to become too strong?
No. I think the Black Templar is playable into. I think the Black Templar is going to be played super strong because it's an army that you can play, and you don't have to. It's very consistent. It's the Cal Ripken Jr. of lists. It just does what it does. It plays very well all the time, and also it's not like super hard to play. It's not like it's a no skill army or anything, but it's not. There's not a billion moving parts. You know what I mean? It plays very well, so you're going to get consistent results, and you're going to get consistent results, across a wide variety of skill groups.
Yeah, that they're going back to Meta Mondays stuff. Like Gladius has a 61% win rate currently, and it's got a 55% rate overall. And I know that its bad matchups are currently Eldar and CSM, right? So I do wonder if there's any problem children who bubble up to the top when the two top dogs are taken away, right? But again, I agree with you about Death Guard and stuff being super underrated.
So what do we got here? Hunter's like, it's funny when we joke about Eldar now and how impressive it's been over from Wraith Knights to Night Spinners. We are going to label it as badass, but yeah, it's not even close. I mean, their Soulburst still existed. That was a real thing.
The thing is, though, it's related, right? I don't think Dark Eldar at their worst are as bad or as oppressive as Eldar are now.
Oh,
right?
God, not even close. Also, to be honest with you, the meta changed pretty quickly because we had a second Dark Eldar Rising. If we didn't have Thick City, like the original Dark Eldar list, and we're not talking about Liquefier because that was a tiny little, thing. But like after Liquefiers, Dark Eldar was dominating, and then everybody kind of just went, I'll just bring a fuck ton of guns, you know what I mean? And just kill all your shit. And then they went way down, and then you had the rise of Thick City. And that's, you know what I mean? But if we didn't have that, Dark Eldar would have just petered out. You know what I mean? The meta almost took care of Dark Eldar by itself. Meta and point. They had a couple point changes. They were undercosted. So, but like, I think that if you didn't see the Coven version of that list, the Thick City version of that list, the regular version of Dark Eldar just kind of went away.
Yeah, no, I agree. And especially with the books that came up after that, right? There was never a circumstance.
Terry goes, maybe do a poll on how many people in the chat got the Cal Jr. reference. Good throwback. The Iron Man, baby. But Monik, what's going on, brother? Thoughts on GW cutting OC0 scoring tools? That's tough, man. To be honest with you, that's above my pay grade. It's hard, man, though, because things like, I mean, Nurglings might be the most broken thing for points in the game right now in their OC0, because of all the things that they do.
But if they can't do actions anymore, right?
Correct. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. That's a great question, though. You know what I mean? I do not know. I think that that's one of the things that if you started tinkering with a little too much, it might have big changes in so many lists that are out there. So I really don't know, because that's tough. You know what I mean? Because that is the scoring for a lot of armies. You know what I mean? Do a lot of that. So I don't know. David, you're not wrong. He goes, the reason we see so many Black Templar lists is because of 65-point Firstborn Crusaders and free melt on tanks. I do think that Black Templars are easy to rein in, but I'm a little worried that they go too far and then the army starts to suck. Yeah, exactly. Zoom says it right. And this is why mechanics are such a big goddamn deal. Soul Burst. Increase the points, increase the points, increase the points. And then finally remove the mechanic and don't revert the points. And then they were legend garbage. You know what I mean? You have to, if there's a problem mechanic, address the mechanic and then put the points back. Fuck, why? I don't know why that's such a big thing. Main Custodes, I'm only here for the memes and good vibes. Custodes got treated dirty. And that's another thing, again, where they don't understand multiplicative, because the synergies are too much. When you give somebody multiple nerfs, it goes together. It's such a big deal. Old worlds, yes.
I agree with Austin. Once you hit CSM and Night Spinners, then orcs become more prevalent. But I think orcs are more playable into, they have better counterplay, and the orc player has to play really well because of how fragile they are, and that's a good spot to be in, right? Like 100%. I could give my kid an Eldar list right now and he would probably be able to win an RTC.
The thing is I love the armies that you have to figure out how to play. It's just, it feels great. you know. And the thing is that it is hard to make a lot of those armies continue to be, because you're going to have a huge disparity between the top and the bottom in experience level. Because if you give somebody a very experienced player, orcs or sisters and things of that nature, you're going to have a wildly different win rate. And so which win rate do you take? You know what I mean? Because those armies are hard to play at a top level. Oh, Hunter just fucking throwing salt on out there. The game is better when custodes are bad. God.
David, I honestly mean this in the nicest, most humane way possible. Take the ability away from charge from the Archon, and it would make the model DOA. I'm okay with that model being DOA. You have gotten more than your money's worth out of it over the course of the.
I get it, but like, why don't you just take the points back? I don't understand when you can. It's not like those are mutually exclusive things. You know what I mean? Nerf the mechanic.
We know GW doesn't do that. They don't give us nice.
Literally, why? Like,
I don't
hey,
think they understand
we tried to change a mechanic with points. Weirdly enough, the mechanic didn't change because we didn't change the mechanic, and then we finally changed the mechanic. We'll take the points back. You know what I mean? So you go back to what it was. I think that old Point Shin Karn without the ability to charge is a fantastic model. Has tons of tech it can do, and it wouldn't feel like a freaking bag of shit on fire on your doorstep. Because you have counter plays. Everybody wants to feel like they're in the game. You know what I mean? You want to feel like your generalmanship counts. If you and I are playing right now, you could have OP shit. As long as I feel like I have plays, it's just things like in Karn and Night Spinner don't give me options to do shit. And it's frustrating. You know what I mean?
That's why I think that they need to do their aggressive changes more rapidly with their FAQs to the indexes and stuff like that, rather than doing the wait and see. Because the problem is that they're not equally heavy-handed.
Ooh.
It's almost like there's 5 different people that are making these decisions.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Patrick here. Does anyone think that Deathwing Knights and the Lion deserve the nerfs they get? Fucking no. Holy shit, I'm pissed about that. Here's why I'm pissed about that, because I'm also a lore dork. In a thing, shameless promotion, the 40K lore guest. I now have the website up, the Discord up, the Facebook up. You can download it on Spotify and iTunes and wherever else you get podcasts. I have no idea. Technological things are not my thing. But one of the biggest reasons that they didn't need a nerf, period, and also they're literally the guys pushing the lore. We've got 2 Dark Angels books and their codex. The Lion coming back and what happens after that is literally what is currently the storyline moving forward for the next X amount of time. And you think that they would treat their IP babies better when these are the poster children for the continued storyline. That is the storyline right now. Is literally, the biggest part of the storyline is, Tyranids coming in and the Lion coming back. And you're just like, dudes, what are you doing? What are you doing?
The fact that the Lion and Mortarion almost cost the same points, and then you compare those data sheets, and it makes you.
I mean, Mortarion just by himself with his buffs is just so much better. It's just fucking crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's.
Zuber has brought up an interesting point about when you're a person who plays the same army all the time and your army becomes prevalent, and then having to deal with the fallout from that. And I feel for those people, because you're not playing the OP shit. It's your favorite thing and everything. And then you suddenly get all that vitriol. But that's a problem with the player base as a whole right now, where they automatically assume that anybody playing meta stuff is like a meta chasing.
Yeah, but you should be shitty. The thing is,
you shouldn't be mean to your
yes,
your
but to be honest with you, to be fair, it's why I just haven't played Eldar the entirety of 10, besides Power Rangers. You know what I mean? So that first week, and then I haven't played them since, besides Power Rangers. And
I felt super dirty playing it at Nova.
But the thing is that it doesn't feel fun to not have fun games. You know what I mean?
Cool.
And you're starting off at negative points if you're bringing Eldar right now, and I just don't need that. Also, Eldar doesn't play like Eldar for me. You know what I mean? Because you don't have the stuff that I feel is Eldar-y, or at least the things that gave me joy for Eldar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm currently looking at like stuff like Tau or Death Guard, because I just don't want to. I know I could do successfully things with Eldar, but like it's just not a fun game for my opponent. They want to be able to kill stuff and interact, right?
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing is that Meh. I've never been a. I'm not a huge Mekdar fan. I've played it before because I played it for team tournaments. They made me play it. That made me. That broke my arm. Exactly. We bullied Brad out of Eldar. It's just, man, I want to have a good time all the time. That's really why I'm at tournaments, to be honest with you. I'm not trying like I'm trying to lose games, but I'm not trying to have a bad time. I mean, hell, that was what tipped me to orcs for LVO. Is I was like, if I slip up at any time, I'll still have a good time playing orcs. So, yeah.
Man, there you go. There's another data sheet that got absolutely gutted after people
Jesus.
bought them Desolation Marines.
Here, I'm going to go with it. Did we get more people buying Desolation Marines and never playing them, or ATVs when you originally could heal them with apothecaries?
Desolation Marines by far.
You think so? Because the ATVs are expensive.
But it was a short time frame that was available, much shorter than Desolation Marines were good. Desolation Marines were good from when that box came out all the way until that gutting, which was a significantly longer. The ATV revival was shorter.
ATV, yeah, I'll give you that. ATV, I knew it was way shorter, but like, yeah, you're right. It was longer than I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But man, that was also another thing. Also, that model looks so stupid.
Thing. Oh, you don't like the Johnny 5 crack?
Stupid crack Johnny 5.
I disagree. I think that indirect needs to be good in the game.
Oh, fuck you.
I know you don't like being shot out of the
every time indirect is good, really good. When I say not even just good, consistent damage from indirect just feels dirty. Ugh.
You should have the ability to reach out and touch things. You shouldn't be able to just defend a home objective. I mean, I could say the same thing about Inceptors. Oh, cool! You can 3-inch deep strike anywhere you want to on the table.
But you can then interact with them. You know what?
You can interact with the tank just as easily.
No, you cannot. Indirect tank hiding behind a wall. Yeah, let me tell you what gets killed. Inceptors show up next to you, and you're like, you know I'm beating the shit out of you next year, right? And the Inceptors are like, I'm well aware, sir. That tank's in the back fucking cooking brats, playing euchre in the back, going, sure'd be cool if we got to shoot all game long and no one shot at us.
But see, here's the thing. I think that one of the disagreements that we have on playstyle types is I want to see more balanced armies that do a bunch of different things. You are predominantly desire almost all melee armies, and you dislike when tanks and stuff like that are good, or heaven forbid we talk about aircraft, right? I think that all the models and the stuff in the game have a role. Yeah, I know, but you should be able to hold your backfield objective with like a tank or something like that that's providing that rather than a 5-man squad.
Then put some O1s on indirect, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The thing is that indirect, screw you, Monic, with the make Hiveguard great again.
Make Hiveguard great again. That
nothing sucked more when you're hitting on a 2, rerolling 1s, exploding 6s. Yeah, that felt great. Hey, where can you hide? Nowhere. I can shoot the entire board.
While you have 3 Democarians charging across the table at you that are all a pain in the ass to kill.
God, that was so annoying. And I, of course, played it. That is true. This is a real story, everyone, if you don't know this. There, at one point in time, speeders had their everything they could do changed. He goes, we had a guy buy 3 of the Forge World's land speeders when they could move 60, hold objectives, and couldn't be charged. They got nerfed before the speeders got delivered, but after they shipped.
This is the way.
Fantastic. Also, you know what? I'm ending on this. Why, GW? How do you stay in business when you sell products that you don't have and I want to buy them? Dude, it took me 1 year to get my Bellacore that I bought for Snigs. I forgot that I had it, by the way. Like, they just sent me a notice at one point in time, like, hey man, your model shipped. I'm like, what the hell did I buy from GW? How?
Hey, all these asking for the data slate. We all know the data slate got delayed by a week because for some reason they needed bad touch monoliths now.
I'm so worried that they no, seriously, I'm so worried that they took a data slate that hopefully had a ton of testing and then YOLO swag some extra shit in the last week. That's the YOLO swag part of it is
Welcome
what
to
I'm
corporate
really worried
America.
about. You're like I feel like there's gonna be 85% awesome data slate, and then there's gonna be this fucking piece of gum with a note attached to it stuck on the bottom of it. Whew.
I'm just scared they're going to touch factions that are in the middle that are fine, like Sisters and Votan, that don't need to be gutted. And they're going to be like, haha, Sagittars, up by 30 points each. Cowabunga.
100% KR, I'm behind you. Hit the like button and go Lions. It's good for my area. Also, David goes, quotations, tons of testing. I hope so, though. Carly, thanks for jumping into it. You know, I made you weird for most of the thing. I mean, you're totally in focus right now. You're looking beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate
that. So, what do you want to see? If you just one thing that you want from tomorrow, was it we should get it on Tuesday, right?
Yes. One thing that I could see.
You must have. Not just tell me your must have. It doesn't have to be true, but just give me your must have.
Genkarn points reverse, but she no longer can charge after teleporting.
To tell you the truth, okay, sorry. Pull it back. Something besides Night Spinners and Genkarn. My bad.
Okay. How about let's talk about a positive change that I'd like to see. I would like to see. God, everything I want is structural. How about you go first and I'll consider?
I think that they should rework Drakari to be separate from Craft Brother.
Yes.
I think that they should have their own.
And Harlequins.
Yes, but I think it's easier to do with Drakari right now. Drakari can't get fixed until they get until they have to stop paying their shitty brothers rent all the time. You know what I mean? It's just make them their own jam and you could fix the army. I really think I would love to see them get the Death Guard Votan from last data slate treatment and just see Drakari be playable again, as opposed to the army that you cherry pick a couple good units and throw them in your Eldar.
I feel like there's a way within weapons to be able to make anti more prevalent to the point where endless construction, you can choose for your melee to be able to do better against things. And whether that be a stratagem or them actually fixing it to the point, like for instance, within Harlequins, make either the Kiss or something have anti-vehicle, anti-monster 4. To the point where we start seeing more models be able to be played. Because, like, for instance, right now, if you're playing Harlequins, all you can do is use Void Weavers to be able to deal with armor. And turns out, not a good strategy just to have 3 models in your list that can deal with armor, unless you go into the full Eldar wherewithal with fire prisms and stuff. So, I'd like to see some kind of strategy around that, because I think that would help the game out exponentially.
And, dude, I'm going to go to the wall real quick. One, Brett, nope. Fire Prism's not going down to $125, but... I love your second quote of point changes based on weapons taken. Man, don't get me started here. They need to either, I know they do, free everything on the stuff, but man, you can't, because there's just a goddamn difference between somebody with all melt to all plasma and some guys with bolters and shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Ready? Would anybody have an issue with the Inceptors if they were 2 different data slates, plasma and bolter? Because those are 2 wildly different things, man. You know what I mean?
Yep. And that's what the whole problem with the way that they did this edition, right? Because now if they touch Inceptors, it touches both.
Yeah.
But nobody thinks bolt Inceptors need a points hike, but definitely plasma do.
Right. And the thing is you get stuff like, also, like, I'd like to see special weapons of people. I mean, there's a big difference between an entire squad with thunder hammers and an entire squad with Astartes chainswords. You know what I mean? They have to separate those things. It would also be easier to make a goddamn list.
But basically, there's no difference between those two, right? Like, yes, Thunderhammers are a little bit better, but they're almost the same thing because of the fact that Thunderhammers have traditionally been able to crack armor, but now you can't.
Yeah.
Haha, sucks for you.
Chase, Yanari has to have their own complete separate deal. They can take stuff, but
It should be a white dwarf.
they need Yanari needs to not fuck up other stuff. You know what I'm saying? They should have their own. Yes, they'll have their own, things, but they shouldn't take the data slate from whatever the data slate is. They should have their own data slates for those units. You know what I mean? And then they would be better, because what happens is every time you buff something, then the combo armies then get to use it. So don't even have that. Have their own data slate for each thing. Here's the Yanari version of Incubi, whatever, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? But here is that version. This is the Yanari only version, so that you could change anything else.
No, KR. I think that Devastating Wounds are in a good spot where they're at now. I just think that they need to make sure that they give Custodes a way to be able to have a chance to shrug.
They should have a 5-up.
I think they should have a 4 versus Devils.
Maybe. I mean, that's hard. But maybe, to be honest with you.
5-ups are trash.
Yeah, but I mean, either one. How about having anything? How about that?
Yeah. Yes.
You know what they have right now? Hold on. There you go. Nothing.
It was great having a 4-up versus Mortals when Devastating Wounds did Mortals, but now they do nothing, and it's just like, hey, you're out there. Hey, Hunter, listen, okay? Thunderhammers are actually really good, consistent weapons in 9th edition.
Well, she's saying wolfen weapons right now. Holy God, they're terrible.
Who in the world designed the Wolfen Thunderhammer? Like,
fuck you. I have so many of those too.
Every Space Wolf player did. I know you touched me with them in 9th edition. You touched me so hard that they decided to take them away, even though you didn't win that game.
I did die. DA was so strong that it put me immediately in the hospital.
I'm sorry, my bad. I won't bad touch you that hard again. I promise.
All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Sunday. I'm going to do more of these as we go. I'd like to get more pre-questions, to be honest with you, in Discord and stuff. But I do want to just have some goddamn talks where we're just, what do you guys want to talk about? You know what I mean? Let's address shit, you know what I mean? And just have a discussion. Obviously, most of our discussion now is going to be about the data slate because, well, data slate, yeah. But like, I want to get into more, let's just talk about units, armies, tabletop play, tournament things, you know what I mean? It's a big deal on that. Oh, Lau coming in with a late $5 super chat. What do you do if your friend gives you a list that's too powerful to be out in the world for a team tournament? Oh God, dude. So
Lyle, just don't choke. That's what you do.
No, it was funny because he was gonna play something different, and I'm like, hey man, no one's playing CSM, and now because of the delay in the data slate, we have to use the stuff out now. We can't use the stuff in the data slate for the team tournament we're going to. And so I'm like, how about you just take triple accursed cultists and six obliterators and forge feeds, and he's just like goes to a tournament, just was like, everything died from my opponents. I forgot to mention the Don, just because why use a strat when you could just have rerolls?
So Lyle went out and won that tournament yesterday.
Oh, it was. He should be up for war crimes. He should.
Lyle's going for top ITC this year. He now has tasted the power.
He's going to the Hague. So, everyone, all right. Queens, wave us out, brother.
Bye-bye.